Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today we're going on a pretty incredible journey, sweeping right from the freezing, towering heights of the Himalayas all the way down to the tropical coastal islands. Our goal here is to really unpack India's deeply complex ecological balance, the magnificent wildlife that depends on it, and the massive ongoing efforts to protect the whole shebang. It's a huge topic for sure, but by the end of our time today, you're going to have a crystal clear picture of this vibrant natural heritage.
We've got a lot of ground to cover. We'll be moving through India's natural biodiversity, breaking down the 5 main forest types, looking at the historical fight to defend these lands, the very real wildlife crisis, and finally, how conservationists are turning the tide.
Let's kick things off by establishing our baseline. What are we actually talking about when we say India's wilderness?
Well, the absolute crucial point to understand right out of the gate is that natural vegetation isn't just some random collection of plants. It's a very specific ecological state. We're talking about a plant community that has been left entirely undisturbed over a really long period of time. And that undisturbed time, it's critical. It allows individual species to perfectly adjust themselves to the specific climate and soil conditions of their environment. It's an intricate, perfectly balanced, self-sustaining network. And to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, India is home to an estimated 4 to 5% of all known plant and animal species on Earth. Think about that for a second. That is a staggering concentration of life packed into one country. The main reason for this unbelievable diversity is simply the vast variety of ecosystems the region has managed to preserve and support through the ages.
So how does all this life organize itself? It basically breaks down into 5 distinctly different ecological zones.
What's really fascinating here is how perfectly rainfall dictates the landscape. It's literally the master architect. Where you have over 200 centimeters of annual rainfall, you get tropical evergreen forests, these lush, multi-layered jungles with towering rosewood and mahogany trees. Drop that rainfall to between 70 and 200 centimeters, and you shift to tropical deciduous forests. This is actually the most widespread forest type in India, loaded with teak and sal trees that drop their leaves in the dry season. Once rainfall drops below 50 centimeters, you're looking at tropical thorn forests, basically semi-arid regions with scattered babu and kejuri scrubs. Then moving up into the mountains, you got montane forests, where the altitude completely takes over, shifting from deciduous foothills to temperate oak, pine, and deodar. And finally, hugging the wet coasts, you have the littoral and swamp forests. And speaking of those coasts, we absolutely cannot ignore the immense ecological value of India's wetlands and mangroves. Get this, India holds a massive 3.9 million hectares of wetlands and 7% of the entire world's mangrove forests. Places like the Sundarbans aren't just beautiful. These specialized ecosystems shelter an incredible variety of bird life and act as an absolutely vital buffer for the coastlines. Protecting them is non-negotiable.
Now, as you can probably guess, maintaining all of this natural wealth hasn't exactly been a walk in the park.
Historically, there's been a massive clash in how these lands were viewed. During British rule, the forests were treated almost entirely for their economic value. They instituted large-scale exploitation that literally re-engineered the forests. They actively replaced ancient oak forests in the Himalayas with commercial pine just because they needed wood for railway lines, and they cleared massive tracts for tea and rubber plantations. It was all about commercial extraction. Compare that to the traditional tribal approach. For indigenous communities, the forest is home, sustenance, and culture. They inherently live in harmony with nature, protecting the very ecosystems they depend on for their livelihoods. And that brings us to a huge paradigm shift in modern Indian environmental policy. For way too long, the traditional knowledge of tribal communities was just sidelined, but modern conservation finally gets it. Integrating age-old forestry knowledge isn't just a nice thing to do, it's practically essential. By transforming local communities from mere collectors into active growers and partners, you actually get successful, sustainable conservation on the ground.
To really reverse the historical damage, the government modified its forest policy back in 1988 with a mind-blowing target. The goal? To bring an incredible 33% of the country's total geographical area under forest cover. And this isn't just about planting random trees to hit a quota. It's about checking soil erosion, maintaining environmental stability, and boosting productivity for rural populations.
So how exactly do you pull off a massive 33% target? Use something called social forestry, which basically gets everyone involved. First, you have urban forestry, that's building parks, green belts, and roadside avenues right inside cities. Second, rural forestry, which promotes combining agriculture with tree growing and giving landless classes space to raise trees on public lands. And third, farm forestry, where forest departments actually distribute free seedlings to farmers so they can grow trees right on the edges of their own fields. It's a total top-to-bottom approach. But while protecting the trees is absolutely crucial, we can't ignore the remarkable animals that call these habitats home. And honestly, they've been facing a severe crisis.
India's wildlife has been fighting a multi-front war for decades. As human footprints expanded, animal habitats were completely upended. You've got rapid industrial exploitation, lands being cleared out for mining and agriculture, and natural habitats destroyed by overgrazing domestic cattle. Plus, hunting, which used to be an elite sport where hundreds of animals were wiped out in a single day, eventually morphed into rampant, highly organized commercial poaching. Add in the increasing threat of forest fires, and you've got several species pushed right to the absolute brink.
Fortunately, that's not where the story ends. There has been a powerful, coordinated pushback to turn the tide. The real game changer hit in 1972 with the enactment of the Wildlife Act. This wasn't just some minor, symbolic piece of paper. It was a comprehensive legal shield. It established a strict framework to protect endangered species and provided the actual legal muscle needed to create conservation areas across the country. And they even amended it in 1991 to make the punishments even harsher, proving they were taking this crisis seriously. Because of that legal framework, India now boasts an unbelievable network of protected land. We're talking 107 national parks and 573 wildlife sanctuaries. On top of that, they've established 18 massive biosphere reserves to protect entire, unique ecosystems. And amazingly, 12 of those 18 are recognized internationally on the UNESCO World Network. That is a massive commitment to land preservation.
But alongside those broad legal acts, the government realized they needed highly specific, targeted interventions for their most iconic species. Take Project Elephant, for example. Launched in 1992 across 18 states, it's completely focused on ensuring the long-term survival of free-ranging wild elephants right in their natural habitats, while also working to mitigate conflicts between elephants and local human populations.
But if we're talking about conservation victories, you absolutely have to look at Project Tiger. Launched way back in 1973, its success has been just staggering. Just look at the numbers. Back in 2006, the wild tiger population was hovering at a precarious 1,411. Fast forward to 2023, and that number surged to 3,682 tigers. Because of this phenomenal effort, India now holds more than 75% of the entire global wild tiger population. It's a spectacular example of what dedicated, focused conservation can actually achieve. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We've talked about these massive government policies, international biosphere networks, and sweeping legal acts. And yes, those are all undeniably essential. But true, lasting conservation is so much bigger than that. It only really works when every single individual understands its significance and pitches in. Knowing what you know now about this incredible ecological balance, what is your role in protecting our natural heritage? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.